For this project, you will set up a still life of at least 3 ingredients from a recipe you like. I chose to draw the ingredients for a whiskey Coke cocktail. Since ice would be problematic to view over a period of time, I'm including a glass as my third ingredient. Take some time to arrange your still life. I went simple here, tallest object in the middle, creating a triangular composition. Since everyone will be working from different still life setups, the process won't be exact, but I will walk you through the order and ways I used sight measuring techniques for this particular arrangement. You can use graphite or charcoal for this project. I recommend using a pencil or a skewer to complete your sight measuring. To begin, I'm going to place the horizon line and find the midline of my tallest object. I decided to note the overall shape of my layered objects. When working from observation, this general shape will need to be adjusted after doing some precise measuring, but I find it helpful to get a quick idea of the overall shape. In this case, I can see that the bottom of the can and the bottom of the glass are slightly staggered. Also, the height of the can is taller than the height of the glass. Now I will do some comparative measuring to determine the size of my objects. I'm using the width of the can because it's in front. I could have used the height of the can just as easily. The glass would also work as well as a unit of measure. So using the width of the can, I am determining how wide my drawing will be from the farthest left object to the farthest right object, in this case the right side of the glass. Using comparative measuring, I can determine that the width is about 3 3/4 soda can widths wide. I can use that same unit of measure, the width of the can, to determine the height of the can by keeping the measurement in my hand and twisting my wrist so my pencil holds upright. I see that the can is 2 times as tall as it is wide. Keeping that same unit of measurement, the width of the can, I will determine the height of the glass, just a bit under 2. You can get extremely specific here, but just under 2 is close enough for me. From here, I will measure the height of the cup's opening ellipse. Looks to me about 1/5 of a can width. For this video, I'm clearing out some of the process lines so you can see clearly, but you can leave them in your drawings. You also don't need to number your measurements unless that helps you. Remember to sketch lightly. So I know how wide and tall my glass is, so I use sighting to determine the angle of the glass, keeping in mind it will mirror on both sides of the glass's midline. Now let's measure the whiskey bottle. I will continue using the can width as my unit of measure. Compared to the can, the width of the whiskey bottle is a bit under 2 again. Since the basic shape of my bottle is a rounded cube in 2-point perspective, I can measure the height of the body from the closest corner on either side. I decided to measure the height of the left side, about 2 can widths. Continuing to measure, I'm going to see how tall the neck of the bottle is from the rounded cube body. I measure from the cross section of the midline and the top of my bottle's body. It's about 2.5 can widths tall. Now I'm using some plumb and level lines to help me create the shape of the neck. I drew a line across the top of the cubed body of the bottle, left to right corners, and a midline, then used a plumb line to determine how wide the widest part of the neck is. Now that I have the height and width measurements, I'm using my pencil to sight measure the angle of the sides of my bottle. Remember, hands on a clock or degrees. The bottom right corner of my cube looks to be at about a 30-degree angle. The left side is clearly flatter, so I will rough that in as well. I can check these angles by seeing where the bottom of the bottle intersects with the can and the glass. When using sight measuring, you need to keep all the techniques in mind: midlines, comparative measuring, sighting angles, and plumb and level lines. If you can see that something is inaccurate but can't correct it using one method, such as comparative measuring, try checking with another method, such as plumb and level lines. Earlier in this sketch, I measured the height, width, and placement of the can and glass. Now I will draw the ellipses on my can and glass. Measure the height of the ellipse, then find the midlines. I'm using these guidelines to help me draw ellipses. There's not much distortion here on my ellipses, so I don't need to draw them going back in space by finding the major axis. The can is even flatter since the top of it is closer to my eye line. I made a note on the left here to show I did begin with the rectangle and finding the midlines. The bottom of the can, I only drew the bottom half since the back half is hidden by the rest of the object. However, in the glass, since it's transparent, I made a sketch of the back of the ellipse. Now that the bulk of the measuring is complete, I can add some details and lighten some sketched measurement lines. For this project, leave your measuring lines. Just make sure I can see your final drawing clearly, so you may need to lightly erase with your kneaded eraser. I didn't add all the details in the labels. For this project, I could have even left them off completely. I used some implied lines on the bottom of the glass, the curve of the can, and the front corner of the bottle. Here's my final drawing. You can see I left my sketch measuring lines, but I can clearly see my final still life.